What up, Laker fans? D-Mac here. Today, I'm joined by a special guest. Of course, I'm talking about Jacob Rude. He covers the Lakers for Silver Screen and Roll. He also is the host of Locked On's Indiana podcast, Your Team Every Day. No, I won't do it. I won't do the full spiel for you, Jacob. But yeah, thank you for joining us, my man.
Yeah, anytime. It's a particularly fun time for me to talk Lakers basketball.
Yeah, no, I mean, Jalen Hood-Schifino, I mean, this is, you're in high demand. I know that people are hitting you up, but the first thing I really want to ask before we really get started here is, did it feel like your worlds are colliding? Did you feel like George Costanza and Seinfeld, where your Lakers world and your Indiana world just colliding there?
Yeah, I didn't really allow myself to think of the possibility of Jalen going to the Lakers. So when it happened, yeah, it was a moment where like, oh my gosh, I didn't even really envision this. And it was a fun moment on draft night. It led to some chaos because I was supposed to be covering that draft pick and I was trying to contain my excitement long enough to get an article out there and share what I knew about him. And then once I hit publish on that, there was some celebrating a little bit on that one.
Yeah, and the Lakers are happy to have him. There was a lot of talk heading into that draft. Did the Lakers trade the pick? So you go with the win now move, but they end up going with Hood-Schifino. And I think it was a great pick. I mean, 6'6", the 6'10" wingspan, combo guard, nice length, nice physical tools. What can you say about him as a prospect, just as far as what he brings athletically and kind of his measurables?
Yeah, certainly from a measurable standpoint, there's a lot of things that jump out. His wingspan is, I think, like +6 to his height, which is abnormally big. And so those are the types of things that scouts and GMs always fall in love with is the wingspan. For a point guard, he has good size at 6'6" with shoes on and whatnot. I think it was like 6'4¼ at the combine without shoes. And so he has kind of those buzzwords, the wingspan, the stuff like that everybody falls in love with. He's a young player. He was a one and done and still is a pretty young player when it comes to draft age as well. So from kind of that standpoint, when not even necessarily looking at the game yet, there was a lot of things that really made him a positive type of prospect for NBA teams.
Yeah, and when you talk about his journey to Indiana, the one thing that really strikes me is that this guy had the visions of being in the NBA. This guy expected to be at this level. He goes to Mount Verde. You know the talent that they've produced. You talk about D'Lo, Ben Simmons, the list goes on and on and on. He's on a diet plan. He's on a strength plan. Was it always expected he's going to be a one-and-done guy, and he goes to Indiana, plays with Mike Woodson? Were those NBA ties there a part of the process of how he landed there?
Well, it's certainly why he chose Indiana. He spoke on that. He wanted to go Mike Woodson kind of fresh out of the NBA game to Indiana. He's only been there a couple seasons now. So I usually landed a number of prospects and transfers and whatnot because of Mike Woodson's ties to the NBA. I would say it wasn't necessarily a given that he was going to be a one and done. I actually don't know that many IU fans thought that would necessarily be the case. He was a very highly touted prospect, a top 25 prospect, but it wasn't like with other prospects where you're like, all right, you got to enjoy him for a season because he's off after that. He really came in and took advantage of a situation he wasn't expected to be in. He wasn't expected to be the sole point guard, and he ran with that. And he showed a lot of development throughout the season. And by the end of the year, you could tell over the final, month or so of the season that, you better enjoy him now because he is going to be gone at this point. So I think it really speaks to his, as you were saying, him making it a goal for so long to be in the NBA, that was his focus, and it led to him developing throughout the season. And he seized that opportunity and eventually became basically a lottery pick just outside of the lottery after a really strong season. And like you said, this has always been a goal for him. You don't go to Montverde without the intention of going to the NBA, basically, that they produce NBA players. So even that alone signals what you want to be as a prospect. And so that's kind of the mindset he's had all along, is that he wants to go to the NBA, and he understood the route he needed to take to get there, and he took advantage of every opportunity available to him along the way, and it culminated in him having a really impressive freshman season at Indiana.
Yeah, and to me, when I look at his path to the NBA, I think the first thing you mentioned just now, the point guard goes down. I believe his name was Xavier Johnson. He steps into that role. He becomes the on-ball point guard. And when you look at his highlights, and one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on, Jacob, is like anytime you got some of these prospects, your team drafts a certain player, you see the 8 best minutes of this player's year, right? But you saw the good, the bad, and the ugly with all the players on this Indiana squad. But to me, what really stands out is the rhythm, a rhythm player, a guy that knows how to play the pick and roll, has the feel for that at an advanced level at his age. What do you think is his biggest strength as a player so far in his career?
Well, certainly the smoothness with which he plays is something that's going to jump out, in that he is not somebody that ever gets sped up. He doesn't play kind of out of control as other point guards might. It's really it looks like he's much older than he is when he plays because of just that smoothness. I related a lot almost to D'Angelo Russell when you watched him play in college, is that those guys never felt like they were sped up. They always felt like they were in control of the game no matter what the situation was. And that was always the big thing that jumped off the paper when you watched him, is that he always felt like he was in control of the game. Even back in Montverde, he played as kind of the on-ball point guard for them, and it always felt like he was dictating the game. He came to Indiana and was supposed to split those duties. Indiana's point guard goes down in early December, and he was out for the year, and Jalen just took over, and it wasn't long before he kind of had that same effect where it felt like he was really dictating things a lot of times. So it's his ability to always feel like he's under control. He'll make mistakes along the way, but it's not because he was going too fast or he didn't read the defense or there's things like that. It's more of kind of an execution thing, which you can generally fix those issues. But he always had a good sense of what was going on around him. And when you play at that kind of pace and that speed at all times, no matter what the situation was, whether it was a big home game with a loud crowd or a big road game with kind of a hostile crowd, he always played at kind of that same level, not too high, not too low. And when you're able to do that, it really, I think, raises the floor of who you are as a prospect, because you're not going to have typically those crazy, wild, really bad games. Now, his shooting kind of led to that at times, and I'm sure we'll touch on that, but it was never an issue of like, wow, he just looks like he is absolutely overwhelmed. There was never really a moment like that, and I think that's going to help him translate to the NBA, in that he's going to keep playing at that same speed. I think Laker fans saw that in his Summer League debut. Even when he was struggling, he didn't really kind of change his approach, and I think that's going to be the case throughout Summer League and into the season as well.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because I think from a character standpoint, you talk about his motor. Doesn't matter if you're at Assembly Hall, you're playing on the road at Elon. The consistency of his game is something that really stood out. But I really want to talk about his defense, because that to me gets me really exciting. A point of attack defender, so confident in his defense, says he can guard multiple positions. You talk about the length. You talk about how big it is compared to his height. I mean, 6'6" to 6'10". Talk about how special of a defender JHS has the potential to be.
Yeah, when IU was healthy last season, which wasn't often, it was only a handful of games, they were a team that was really aggressive man-to-man defense, and it worked because they had someone like Jalen Hood-Schifino on the floor. They had some other guys that were quality defenders, but when we mentioned all the things earlier about having such a plus wingspan and the height and whatnot, that means ideally down the road, and probably even a little bit his rookie season, that he'll be able to defend multiple positions. He's a strong point of attack defender. He's aggressive, a little over aggressive at times with pressuring the ball, but he's also someone that I think there's a little bit more work to be done defending off the ball, but a lot of that was kind of focus things at times, and like losing your guy, and a lot of things you could almost attribute to being a freshman and being a young player that's still kind of learning the tricks of the trade, so to speak. So he's someone that has all the physical tools, and a lot of the mental tools as well. We kind of speak about that mindset he has offensively and how much it helps him there. It also helps on the defensive end. When things weren't going well for him offensively, it never really impacted him defensively. He was able to still compete at a high level at that end of the court as well. So I think that is why he will get minutes, if nothing else, right away for the Lakers, is that he is going to be able to stick on the floor defensively. The Lakers lost a really good point of attack defender in Dennis Schroeder, and that's, I think right now, heading into the season, a bit of a point of weakness. So it'll be interesting to see how much Jalen is able to get on the court and how that translates to the NBA. But I think there's a hole there that he could help fill. I don't know that he's going to jump in and immediately be the defender that Dennis Schroeder was, but he can help fill that. And we know how much Darvin Ham likes defense and has talked about that. And if you can defend in the NBA, you're going to find your way onto a court, especially as a rookie.
Exactly. I think that's what they were looking at when they were evaluating him, is what he can do on the defensive side of the ball. But also, I was asking you too, is he's a little bit behind some of his other players as far as the pecking order. When you look at offensively, what is he going to be able to do? Of course, you saw some of those dribble handoffs, some of those plays, some of the pick and roll actions that Mike Woodson ran for him at Indiana. I think you see him in the mid-range. He has a really nice floater as well. But the three-point shooting, that might be a big question. First game of Summer League, goes 0 for 5, shoots 33% from beyond the arc at Indiana. What can you tell me about his three-point shooting? And do you think that this is an area where he can improve in the NBA to be a consistent knockdown shooter from beyond the arc?
It's incredibly streaky. And you can look at his percentage. It was 33%. He had 37 made threes on the season. 16 of them came in 3 games. So that speaks to just how streaky he was. I think it can be something that can be improved. I often look at free throw percentage as kind of something that can translate, and he was a 78%, 77% free throw shooter. But you don't even really need to go that far with Jalen. You can look at his mid-range game, and it's a smooth shot. Like it's a pretty shot that you can easily look at that and see, oh yeah, I could see him stretching that out to the 3-point line. His three-pointer never looked any different than his mid-range jumper. So I think it's something where he's going to have to get a lot of shots in and work on that and just the repetition part of it. I don't think it's a situation where he needs any big changes to a shot or anything like that. And like I said, it worked at times. There were games where he would hit 6 3-pointers against Ohio State, or he'd hit 5 3-pointers or wherever it may be. So that's definitely going to be, I think, the swing skill, which is going to determine, is he going to be someone that's a serviceable backup point guard for, 5, 6, 7, 8 years in the NBA, or is he someone that's going to be starting caliber, really, really good, maybe all-star level, things like that, is whether he gets a consistent 3-point shot. I'm optimistic because of his touch around the rim, his free throw shooting, his mid-range shooting, that he will be able to stretch that out to the 3-point line. But I don't know that it's necessarily going to come in one season. I think that's certainly going to be a work in progress.
Yeah, and if you look in the first game, the arc was there, the rhythm was there. They're going to go down. You talk about some of those games, those 6 for 9 against Ohio State, against Northwestern, against Iowa. Some of those games, he was going off and he was comfortable. You mentioned the free throw shooting. That's always a pretty strong indicator. So I definitely think the potential is there from beyond the arc. But another thing I want to touch on as well was his character, because you heard Rob Pelinka and the Lakers talk about the interview process and how much they were sold on him and how impressive he is in interviews. Can you just talk about his character and what he brings from that standpoint as well?
Yeah, nothing is going to appeal you to the Laker fan base more than talking about Kobe and Mamba mentality, which is what he kind of has, as cliche as it is. That's what I believe Pelinka said about him. And Jalen is a huge Kobe fan, so certainly he has kind of discussed that and thought about that. When he committed to IU, he did it in a Kobe Bryant jersey and on Kobe Day, so 8/24. So he's certainly a big Kobe fan. And from a mindset standpoint, how he's approached the game for years, I think, speaks to his level of character, and that the NBA has been the goal for him, and he wasn't really going to let anything kind of stop him in that regard. He knew what sacrifices needed to be made along the way to ensure that he made the NBA. And certainly his goals will change now. I don't think it's a job finished, we can party now type of situation, but he is someone that I think can, that mentality is going to be a real strong suit for him, and that he can have a clear goal, a clear mindset, and he's shown he can accomplish that goal. And when you get to the NBA, that's the type of mindset you need to have. And I think he's approached basketball for a number of seasons now, even before IU, again, dating back to Montverde, where they just produce NBA players. He's approached basketball as a job, basically, for a number of seasons. And now it actually is his job. So there won't be kind of that level of adjustment. His mindset's always been there. He's a great person, great, easy person to root for. It's one of my kind of favorite stories about him. It's not one that, I don't know how much it'll translate to the NBA, but he declared for the NBA draft pretty quickly. I mean, everybody knew it was going to be the case, but with college basketball the way it is and the transfer portal open all spring and whatnot, he was off, and I believe he was working out in LA, but he was off preparing for the NBA draft while also recruiting kids to come to Indiana, even though he was done with Indiana. It was past him and everything. He was still calling recruits and transfer guys and recruiting them to Indiana despite, him not being there anymore. So that to me kind of shows the type of character he has. And he's a loyal guy. And I think that just his general mindset and how he approaches the game is a big positive, especially for someone as young as he is.
Yeah, that says a lot. I mean, recruiting, having a guy like that to get back, and he's so much on his plate really to try to get his footing with the Lakers. But yeah, I think if you want to endear yourself to this fan base, you definitely say the stuff that he said, living by the Mamba mentality. I went back and watched his commitment video where he talks about being a lifelong Kobe fan and the journey. So yeah, like Kobe said, the job's not finished. So when it comes to his job right now in the Los Angeles Lakers, what do you think his ceiling is? Are we talking multi-time All-Star? Are we talking about a key rotational player, a key role player? What do you truly believe is his absolute ceiling as an NBA player?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's if he can develop a three-point shot, like if we're talking best case scenario, he's the type of guy that can be I think a couple-time All-Star, an elite scorer. He has that mid-range game. I think he has a little bit more to his game around the rim. The way IU played last season, I'm sure a lot of Lakers fans have looked up tape. There were 5 guys in the paint at all times. His numbers at the rim didn't look great because he didn't go there often, and when he did, it was heavily defended. So I think there's a little bit more to his game there. I think in an ideal scenario, you're looking at a guy, I think, that's a 3-level scorer and someone that can play as well out of the pick and roll as he can. I mean, those are the types of guys that find a ton of success in the NBA. So this move felt like one that the Lakers had both an eye on kind of the present as well as maybe the post-LeBron era of the Lakers, whenever that may be. I mean, LeBron kind of maybe put them on their heels a little bit right after Game 4 when he talked about retirement. So the Lakers kind of made a move here. I don't think they necessarily sacrificed anything in the present, but this is certainly a pick with an eye on the future as well. Jalen's someone that I think is going to take a little bit of time to get everything right and adjust to the NBA just from a kind of a skill set standpoint. But if everything clicks, and I mean, more often than not with the Lakers kind of developmental staff, player developmental staff, things click. If everything clicks, then you have a really, really talented guard, a lead guard that can be a two-way player. And at that point, you're talking, an all-star, one of the better players in the league and things like that. So I think there's a really exciting future for him if everything does click in a best case scenario.
Yeah, I know. I'm really glad you brought that up. The fact that, yeah, he can be the present, but this is more eye to the future. This is more post LeBron, okay? LeBron, you're not going to take the picks. You're not going to get win now players. We're going to talk about life after LeBron. We're not going to do what we did with some of the other franchises in the past. And I think I could see him as a guy who maybe goes down to the G League, develops down there. He's a guy that doesn't try to rush the process. And that's something that excites me about him. We saw Max Christie last year have some success, but also development. And with some of the guys in front of them, the Lakers get off to a hot start. They got their rotation in place. He doesn't crack that rotation, have a big impact early on. He can still continue to grow. So I think you could probably maybe get some minutes down the G League as he earns his way on the court. But what do you think is the number one reason why he earns minutes next year for the Lakers?
The defense. And I would say the defense for one, and just his ability to be a point of attack defender, which is something, again, the Lakers lack, but also his ability to play under control and not get sped up as most kind of rookies do. Those two things are going to help him. I think the Lakers are going to approach this season differently than they have in previous years. I think there's going to be a lot more load management for LeBron and AD. So if you're taking some minutes away there, I think he'll be able to get on the floor a little bit more as well. But if I had to point at one thing, I would say the defense. I think he complements the Lakers guards well on both ends of the floor, but specifically defensively. If you look at someone like D'Angelo Russell, Jalen can come in and be the point of attack defender, and D'Lo can be kind of the off-ball defender, chasing guys around. We saw him do that, I think, with success against the Warriors and Klay Thompson in the playoffs. So I think those are the types of ways he can get on the floor, is what he can do defensively, really with any number of the Lakers guards.
Yeah, no, absolutely see that potential. Now, I love me some player comps, okay? I've seen Twitter go crazy from anyone from Jamal Murray to Devin Booker, some crazy names out there from Marcus Smart, guys like that. Who is a guy that you could see him growing into? Who is your player comp for him, for the Lakers?
I would say right now, specifically to kind of how his game is now, there is a lot of comparison, or a lot of similarities to Dennis Schroeder. I mean, someone who can operate in the pick and roll. Dennis could do that well. He has a mid-range game, he has a really good floater, and that was something Dennis had a lot of success with. I think Dennis was better right now, or he was better at getting to the rim, finishing there, drawing fouls, kind of being a bit of a grifter to get to the free throw line. That's not something Jalen has in his game, or at least showed he had in his game. And Dennis's three-point shot was streaky. It wasn't really reliable, and it came and went. And I think all those are kind of fair comparisons to Jalen. And then defensively, I mean, I've mentioned Dennis a couple times. He was the Lakers' best point of attack defender, I thought, last season, and it showed in the playoffs. And I think that's the best skill that Jalen has on the defensive side of the floor, is being a point of attack defender. So his game right now, I would say, is pretty similar to Dennis Schroeder, which is awfully convenient for the Lakers in their current situation.
All right, that's excellent. We appreciate all the analysis, but I have one more question for you.
Hit me.
What is a Hoosier? I gotta know.
It is someone that lives in Indiana, and don't start thinking about it too hard, because it starts to really not make sense for the Indiana Hoosiers.
Got it. Hey, the cream and crimson.
Indiana, and basically.
Nice. Hey, you got to ask these questions. I appreciate the time. I know you're a busy man around these times. Everyone wants to get your opinion on JHS, but we appreciate here on the Lakers 24/8 YouTube channel. Of course, you can follow Jacob Rue. Does an incredible job covering and analyzing the Lakers for Silver Screen and Roll. Also, for my college hoops fans, go check out his podcast, Locked on Indiana. Definitely subscribe to that. But Jacob, really appreciate the time, and have a great day, my man.
Yeah, as always.
Take it easy, Jacob.